about overcoming chronic illnesses and the nature of such diseases. We will start by addressing some questions.
Thank you very much. Let's begin with questions and answers on the topic of chronic illnesses. Here is an interesting question. Why does an illness become chronic? Doctors prescribe treatment, and you follow it.
This is the issue. Most people don't realize that chronic illnesses are not just diseases of the physical body. This is a disease of the subtle energy body because chronic illness means that there is a chronic lack of sufficient energy flowing into the body. The body requires energy to supply the affected organ. No matter how much you treat the organ, it won't heal because adequate energy is essential for life. For example, if you eat spicy food, energy is needed for the stomach to recover. If you breathe heavily after running, energy is needed for the lungs to recover. Physical exercise requires energy for the muscles to recover. If you breathe in cold air, energy is needed to restore the mucous membranes. In other words, energy is essential for the body's recovery. If there isn't enough energy, all the organs become weak and cannot function properly. As a result, they consistently fail, leading to chronic problems and inability to regenerate. Organs age because regeneration requires energy. Chronic illnesses arise when the body lacks energy. Medical treatment typically addresses only the physical body. Chronic diseases mean lack of energy, and when you get treatment from doctors, you're only treating the physical body. Because the subtle energy body can only be treated through asceticism practice, like running, bathing in cold water, visiting a sauna, doing static exercises, or fasting, this rejuvenates the body. True rejuvenation depends on this. That's why I've been practicing it for 10 years. I've noticed my peers age significantly while I remain active. If I tell people that I run 17 kilometers or sit in icy water or stand in the sun for 2 hours, they're astonished. At 60 years old, they can't imagine doing such things. Or I sit in ice-cold water or stand in the sun for 2 hours. That means they don't understand how this is possible because their subtle energy body has already shrunk, and the older a person gets, the more effort is needed to restore the subtle energy body. With age, it becomes harder to restore it. That's why all my peers at 60 are slowly declining. But I somehow haven't gotten around to declining yet. Somehow everything is normal. I feel excellent. I exercise regularly, practice hardening techniques, and feel great because I have the knowledge of how to live properly. If this knowledge didn't work, I would have developed chronic illnesses by now. But instead, my body is recovering. For example, my lower back. I've completely healed it. It hurt for 3 years but started recovering when I was 56. Thanks to physical activity and disciplined practices. By 58, it was fully restored. Now at 59, I have no pain at all. It doesn't ache or bother me. Everything is fine. There was a time when I could only touch the ground by bending over at a 40-degree angle. Now I can reach it with ease from a 10-degree angle. Essentially, my body is rejuvenating while others are aging. My body has fully recovered and is functioning well. It took years to restore because I hadn't cleansed it earlier. Even though I practiced yoga, I wasn't doing dynamic exercises or fasting. As a result, I wasn't restoring my subtle energy body, and naturally, it began to deteriorate. Chronic illnesses started developing and my skeletal system suffered, but now I've fully restored my body. Even at an advanced age, the body can recover if there is enough energy in the mental body. That's the key. All medical treatments are essentially just a redistribution of energy. For example, imagine an empty apartment. If you try to rearrange the furniture, what can you move? There's nothing to rearrange if the apartment is empty. Similarly, when you take medication, it's like rearranging energy in the body. But if there's no energy, what can you move? You might temporarily redistribute energy to make it feel slightly better. You're trying to redistribute energy to balance it. For instance, energy may be directed to a sick stomach, giving slight relief. But overall, there's still not enough energy in the body. Just because it feels slightly better doesn't mean the organ will recover. And even if it got a little better, it doesn't mean it will recover. Stomach recovery needs a lot of energy, much more than just for its normal functioning. And when we're weakened, it means we're sick. You eat a little bit of wrong food and that's it. That's why doctors say, you can't eat this, that, and the other. Only 2-3 products remain for a person. That's your diet. Nothing you can do. That's your life. That means people are led to believe they should barely breathe, but this is incorrect thinking. Doctors say, don't eat, don't drink, don't go outside, don't go in water, don't go in the sun, don't sleep, don't do anything, just barely breathe. This is wrong thinking. The right way of thinking is the opposite. Increase contact with nature, restore your body, and eat normally, not recklessly, but in a balanced way. Let's move on to the next question.
Why are so many people suffering from different illnesses now? In the past, our grandparents were much healthier and stronger.
For the same reason, people used to live outdoors. Look at history. What kind of houses did our grandparents have? Ask them. They lived in small homes, often with 10 people in a 60 square meter space. Houses were tiny with 3 to 5 square meter rooms. There wasn't much space, so everyone stayed outdoors, in the yard or the fields harvesting crops. In the past, 90% of people worked in agriculture. It was essential for food, shelter, and warmth. Some wove clothes, others gathered firewood, planted crops, and harvested them. Most work was done outdoors. Even weaving linen started with growing and processing flax in the fields. Harvesting crops and everything related to it happened outdoors. People lived in fresh air and were active. Think of songs like, "I'll go outside, look at the village, the girls are dancing, and I'm happy." Do girls dance outside now? No, they're in cars or houses. Everyone is glued to their gadgets, interacting with their gadgets. That's life now. Without energy, there's no life. Naturally, everyone is chronically ill. Not only sick, but even changing their genders. Not in their apartments, but in their bodies. Everything is constantly changing because there's no energy. People barely survive, dragging themselves through life. Even young people seem half dead because they lack energy. In the past, what did children do? I remember spending my entire childhood outdoors, playing games, throwing water, shooting imaginary guns, and knocking cans with sticks. We did all sorts of things, always outside. My mom used to shout, "Come eat." I'd eat and rush back outside. That was how summers and winters were spent. After school, I'd quickly do my homework and go outside again. Life happened outdoors. Now where is children's life? On phones and computers. They play virtual games instead of running and jumping. If a person doesn't move or harden themselves, their body weakens. In childhood, we strengthened ourselves in the sun and water. I remember when a kindergarten was being built, we would jump from its second floor into snowdrifts. One kid jumped and landed head first. They pulled him out, and he was fine. No concussion, no issues. Everyone was healthy and strong, and nobody was seriously ill. I don't recall kids being bedridden with colds. Sure, there were runny noses, but it wasn't a big deal. No one worried about flu or similar illnesses. People lived normal lives. A slight fever would come and go, and that was it. No one even thought of going to the hospital for such issues. Nowadays, as the song by Vysotsky goes, "If you're frail, you're straight to the grave." People have become extremely weak and fragile. The reason is a lack of connection with nature and the absence of discipline. Kids are all half alive, and adults are even worse. Now, many people constantly need psychologists or psychiatrists. Everyone turns to them because they can't handle the stress. There's no energy. The body doesn't function properly, nor does the nervous system. Because the subtle energy body suffers, everything suffers. Personal life, work, and health suffers above all. That's why the root cause of so many illnesses today is an unhealthy lifestyle, and it's only going to get worse. Humanity is in a state of degeneration. When a mother is energetically drained, she gives birth to an energetically depleted child. That child can't develop properly because they lack energy, leading to conditions like autism or cerebral palsy. Why are these conditions becoming so prevalent? Because adults don't lead healthy lifestyles, and weak parents give birth to weak children. A weak mother can't give birth to a healthy child, only a weak one. That's why there's so much cerebral palsy and autism now. People are walking around half alive, half aware. Everything is halfway.
Oksana, Moscow, 30 years old. We've been trying to conceive a child for 10 years. For a decade, doctors have diagnosed me with chronic hormonal imbalance. I don't want to undergo hormone therapy. I've long known about the impact of oils on the hormonal system, but I can't find clear guidelines for this method anywhere. I lean toward natural, holistic treatments, and since I work with doTERRA essential oils, I started applying black spruce essential oil to my wrists. So far, I haven't seen significant progress. Am I doing something wrong?
Of course, you're doing it wrong. Essential oils are a very complex method that requires a deep understanding. One essential oil alone will never help anyone. It carries very specific narrow energy, and therefore it might help a little at first, then it starts to overload. It's like eating only one specific spice. Essential oils are like spices. Imagine consuming just dill seeds or only black or red pepper. It will tire you out within a week. This is harmful to health. Essential oils are a very dangerous method. You need to study it seriously to use it. To treat with essential oils, first you need to know where to apply them. There are special zones. Each illness has its own zones. We mainly use these zones on the ears because ears are responsible for regulation and redistribution of energy in the body. And we found zones where to apply oils so that all energy goes there. The lower part of earlobes is connected with female and male diseases. The tragus of the ear. Many people like to touch the tragus. This is connected with hormonal organs, male and female diseases. For example, infertility. It's approximately the same in all women. We took 10 women with infertility, selected oils for them. It turned out to be 10 different combinations of oils, and I noticed that 2 or 3 oils will definitely suit some women from these options. But there are very subtle proportions, mixtures of these oils. Everything is very harmoniously verified. Each oil, each mixture is a masterpiece in itself. Everything is very finely calibrated. They are balanced in strength between oils and suit the woman. How to determine if an essential oil is suitable? It has a light scent, practically doesn't smell. While all essential oils smell strong, smell them. But our mixtures practically don't smell. Just a light, fresh, pleasant, cool scent. If it has a warm smell, it means it's not suitable. If it has an unpleasant smell, it means it's not suitable. If it has a stale rather than fresh smell, it means it's not suitable. If it has a heavy rather than light smell, it means it's not suitable. With our oils, you smell them and don't feel the scent at all, and freshness goes inside, as if you're smelling coolness, something fresh. This means they are precisely selected for you. Another person might smell the same blend, but for them, it has a completely different scent. This method is truly remarkable, and we send oils to people for a whole year. Even with the right oils, it takes a year of application. At first, the energy redistributes, then accumulates, and only after that does it start producing results. Hormonal organs and functions don't activate instantly. And for all this to work, you need to follow all asceticism practices and methods. Essential oils have a very powerful effect, and black spruce oil, for example, is just for dissolving issues. If there's nothing to dissolve, then there's no reason to use it. It has dissolving properties and can help with fibroids or endometriosis, but only in combination with other oils. Beyond dissolving, it's also essential to restore the mucous membranes or the uterus. Dissolving alone won't help. Everything must work as a system and be scientifically and professionally approached when using essential oils. It's not some casual activity where you do whatever you want because it's natural. Natural methods also need to be applied correctly. You can't just assume that because something is natural, it's automatically effective. These are not foods. Even with food, you don't eat everything indiscriminately. You choose what suits and appeals to you. With essential oils, you apply them rather than ingest them, so you can't immediately tell if they're suitable. You'll know only after use. People tend to eat whatever, only to later notice unpleasant odors or symptoms. Animals, on the other hand, sniff first and then decide to eat, determining suitability by smell. People eat first and sniff later, but by then, it's too late. It's too late to smell then. Why smell when you've already eaten? Nothing good has happened in your body already. Therefore, you need to do everything correctly, study. By smell, you can determine which products are suitable and which are not. Essential oils can be determined the same way, but it's impossible to eat one spice. You won't heal with one essential oil. You need a system. Therefore, we've created lines of essential oils for women's and men's diseases. Self-treatment is always very dangerous, but our method for cleansing of the blockages in the energy layers is universal. Because there are 3 energies, they are universal. It's not that one energy affects one person, another affects another. The 3 energies, sun, air, and water, are the same for everyone, and interacting with them correctly is generally similar for all. There are nuances for individuals, but these can also be anticipated. In 6 months, Dr. Torsunov's school will open, offering a 3-month course on healthy living. By the end of the course, you'll know exactly what to do, with an individualized cleansing program designed for you. Everything is tailored to the individual. Start by adopting a healthy lifestyle and explore the Amrita Wellness Center on the website torsunov.ru. They offer aromatherapy. Contact them. I personally select oils, carrying samples wherever I travel. By using samples and photographs, I can accurately determine what's suitable. When the oil arrives, smell it. If it's light, fresh, cool, and pleasant, it's the right one. You'll be able to identify this yourself. Then you'll apply for about 6 months to a year. Only after this period will hormones restore. It's best for both husband and wife to use this method since it's not always clear who has the imbalance. Doctors don't always identify everything correctly. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Why do chronic diseases like diabetes develop in young children?
Don't young children have a subtle energy body? If there is a subtle energy body, it may lack energy. What's the difference if a small person or an adult lacks energy? If there's a lack of subtle energy in the 4th energy layer, the 4th layer is connected to the pancreas, there will be diabetes. Why not? If the pancreas lacks energy, it cannot produce insulin. There's your diabetes. Whether it's a small child or an elderly person, they can lack energy. If there's a lack of energy, a chronic disease develops. Why do you think that small children must necessarily have enough energy? There's autism, cerebral palsy, and underdeveloped children. If underdeveloped, it means they lack energy. The body has a divine nature. If the mental body works properly, the physical body in children always develops and recovers naturally. Even if the body is slightly underdeveloped, providing adequate energy allows it to develop and recover during the growth process. It's even possible to help children with autism or cerebral palsy recover completely. Significant effort is required to provide children with energy. We have specialized methods for this. It's easy to give water energy. They sit in the water and hang upside down. When a child sits in water, they absorb water energy. When hanging upside down, water circulation begins. An adult can just stand. We've specially developed water energy absorption methods for children. It's possible through sitting in water, usually 28 degrees, 70 minutes. This is the standard procedure. If people can't tolerate 28 degrees, they'll need much more time. At 30 degrees, for instance, it takes 90 minutes, which is very long and difficult. I remember being in a pool at 30 degrees. We could barely endure it. We barely managed to cleanse 4 layers before going to the sauna. It's a long and challenging process, especially as water above 29 degrees begins to heat the body, while at 28 degrees C, it still cools. It's better to sit in cooling water, but if it's intolerable, adjustments can be made. Another option is hanging upside down. 3.5 minutes cleanses 1 layer. You can start with 3.5 minutes and gradually increase without rushing to 17.5 minutes, which covers 5 layers. I have an inversion table that Lena arranged as a gift. I use it every day at home. It's very practical. There's nothing to do. I just hang there and pray. After hanging, you can also sit in a static position. I hang, don't need to do anything, just keep hanging. On the inversion table, I discovered it's also great for handstands. I flip over, do a handstand, and bend backward. It's fantastic. As I've aged, it's harder to jump against a wall for handstands, but the inversion table makes it easy. A handstand for 40 seconds cleanses 1 layer, but I can't handle more than 1 layer at a time. For children, dynamic cleansing must follow. This is more challenging as young children, age 3-4, can't cover long distances. Their bodies are still weak and can't endure extended walking. Starting at 7 to 8 years old, children can walk while holding hands. There's another method. You walk at an average pace, while the child alternates between running, sitting, and lying down. You never stop. If the child catches up with you, they've generated the energy they need. Over 4 hours, you cover a certain distance. We haven't yet calculated how many kilometers correspond to layers of energy for young children. In 4 hours, 5 layers can be cleansed. If a child is very young and unable to walk long distances, there's a passive method for dynamic cleansing, a salt room. Many cities now have spa salt rooms. Salt rooms are maintained at about 40-50 degrees, not too hot. In 50 minutes, dynamic energy is cleansed, not toxins, but prana energy. Normally, heat cleanses toxins, but salt rooms specifically treat dynamic energy, stimulating the flow of prana. Passive cleansing of prana happens in the salt room, and toxins can be cleansed in children using a steam room. Children need lower temperatures for cleansing. Everything works differently than in adults. For adults, the optimal total is 110, 60 for temperature and 50 for humidity. This is considered the best balance. It can also be 70 for temperature and 40 for humidity, 80 for temperature and 30 for humidity, or 90 for temperature and 20 for humidity. Humidity below 20 is usually harmful to health as it dries out the bronchial tubes. In these conditions, it takes 10 minutes per layer for an adult to cleanse, and this process involves energy purification through sunlight. For children, the optimal total is 90, 60 for temperature and 30 for humidity. With this combination, it also takes 10 minutes per layer for a child to cleanse. We've developed specific methods for children, and they work. Autism and diabetes in children can also be treated using these techniques. These issues are largely due to an overload of water and solar energy. Treatment involves sitting in water, hanging upside down, and sunlight therapy through fasting, particularly passive fasting, by blending spinach leaves and drinking. Such fasting helps heal the pancreas, regulate blood sugar, and remove toxins and blockages. For diabetics, it's best to include 80% greens in their diet to potentially treat diabetes with nutrition. Elderly individuals should eat more greens and raw foods. The older a person is, the more vegetables and leafy greens they should consume. This is highly beneficial for health. Reduce grain intake. With age, it's best to avoid meat, fish, and eggs altogether. Increase your intake of vegetables and fruits while minimizing grain-based foods. Diabetics in particular should primarily eat greens to allow the pancreas to recover. If you eat only greens for 48 hours once every 2 weeks, it will be a passive fasting and it will cleanse energetic blockages in the pancreas, and body restoration will occur, especially in early childhood. Fasting on greens doesn't negatively affect the pancreas. On the contrary, it improves its function. Diabetics can't do water fasting, but they can fast on greens. Next questions.
Hanging on an inversion table and praying. This is something new. Thank you.
What else would you do there? Howl. You just pray. You hang and pray.
First it was run and pray, and now it's hang and pray.
How would you pray while running? You wouldn't have enough breath for it. Hanging and praying is perfectly fine. You can sit and pray. Right now I'm sitting and giving this lecture. When you're static, you can lecture, but when hanging, you pray. You wouldn't give a lecture while hanging. You'd need to position the computer upside down. It's like a joke. A polar bear sees a penguin, grabs it by the legs. Who are you? It says, Gwynpen. He flips it over. Who are you? Penguin. Upside down, it's a ginpen. Next question.
I was once diagnosed with chronic illness, but I overcame it. So, chronic isn't a sentence. They say chronic illnesses don't go away. Or was it not really chronic?
Who cares what they say? It's the I read it in the newspaper philosophy. It used to be, the newspaper said this, and now what? If a newspaper wrote that the Volga River flows into the Black Sea, does that mean the river has changed its course? Whether it's written in the newspaper or said by doctors, chronic illnesses, why don't they go away? Everything went away for me. Chronic illnesses do exist. It just means there's insufficient energy in the subtle energy body. Why don't doctors cure chronic illnesses? Because they don't treat the subtle energy body. If they did, everyone's chronic illnesses would disappear. For example, someone treats their subtle energy body, they have asthma, a chronic condition, and it goes away completely. Alex, which chronic illnesses did you overcome? Tell us. Alex constantly does all sorts of cleansing routines.
Dr. Torsunov, we're currently heading to the opening of the winter swimming season in Latvia. Around 100 of us will gather for it.
Wow, that's impressive. What chronic illnesses have you gotten rid of?
Chronic melancholy is gone.
Got it. You didn't even have time to get sick, right?
Of course, Dr. Torsunov. Your methods are incredible. We've been discussing here that it's something everyone needs. Everyone should stick a poster with you on their fridge where you're pointing a finger and saying, have you done your static exercises, dynamic exercises, and fasting today?
Let's organize that. I'm up for taking photos.
We'll photograph you in Georgia.
I'll need a cap or maybe a pilot's hat with a star, or whatever's trendy now. Fashion has changed. Chronic illnesses definitely go away, but it takes time. Energetic blockages in the subtle energy body are cleared over about 8, 9, or 10 months, depending on the density of the blockage. You need to practice ascetic disciplines for 8, 9, or 10 months, and the blockage is removed. After that, the chronic illness itself begins to heal. With no blockages, energy flows sufficiently to the physical body, and the organ starts healing. How long will that take? Another 8 or 9 months. After about a year and a half, you're free from the chronic illness. Of course, you might argue people don't live that long these days, but I think a year and a half is manageable. After a year and a half, it's gone, and the serious illness is no more. Arthritis, stomach ulcers, all of it disappears completely. Nothing remains. You could have joint pain for 10 years, and in 2 years it's healed, and you're healthy. Isn't it great to live like that? Alex, by definition, can't even have chronic illnesses because he's a cold water swimmer. He'll jump into ice-cold water, and any chronic illness just flees from him. Yesterday, my wife said, I'll jump into the water, cold water. Tomorrow morning, I'll wake up and jump in. You have to help me. We turned on the hammam, prepared everything. She measured the temperature. Outside, we have barrels of water. The temperature is 14 and 7 degrees. She said, I'm not going in. It's way too cold. I'm not going. I said, that's a good temperature. It's actually easier to sit in that than in 16 or 17 degrees. At 16 or 17, your body shivers, but at 14, it stiffens, and there's no shivering, so it's easier to sit in. She said, no, I'm not going in. I'll get cramps all over. Fine, I said, then fill up a bathtub. I left, and when I came back, I saw her climbing into the barrel. I said, why are you getting in? It's cold for you. She said, I dipped my legs in, and they didn't cramp. At 11 degrees, they cramped, but now at 14, they don't. I said, well, then go further. She stayed in for almost 20 minutes, then went to the sauna, and after that got back into the water for 4 minutes. Now she's walking around happy, singing songs. That's it. This is how it works. Relationships improve immediately. If a wife doesn't perform any asceticism practices, she ends up driving her husband crazy, and arguments happen constantly. But if she performs asceticism practices, she walks around happy and content. Everything is good. The husband is great. I don't dislike him anymore as I used to. Asceticism practices help people live happily. A joyful life is organized. Everyone feels cheerful and happy. There's plenty of energy. Life is fun. When there's no energy, life feels bad. So heal yourselves. Life is ahead of you. A year and a half will pass and that's it. The chronic illness will be gone. Even at an older age, everything can recover. The only difference is that reaching the fifth energy layer takes much longer when you're older. It's a whole science on how to activate yourself at an older age. Let's say you're 60 years old and just starting cleansing practices. It will take you about 2 years to reach the fifth energy layer. You need to do everything very slowly and gradually. When I started running at 50, I decided to run immediately, skipping walking, and it took me 2.5 years to work up to the fifth layer. Now I run according to my schedule, and everything is fine. I maintain this routine in life. My heart is strengthened, and now I feel great. Yesterday I ran 17 kilometers in 1 hour and 50 minutes, with an average heart rate of 135 beats per minute. But that's also because the weather is excellent right now. It's refreshing to run. When it's fresh outside, my heart rate doesn't spike. 135 is an excellent heart rate for running. It's a very trained heart that can maintain such a rate. Usually even young people have an average heart rate of 150-60 because their hearts are not trained. Mine used to be 150-162, but now it's stabilized and my heart has strengthened because I run on a schedule and everything's fine. I feel good. Next question.
Please tell me, if a person has a weak Saturn from birth, meaning a weak ability to absorb energy and very low endurance, can this be fully developed through practicing asceticism to become a long liver?
No, just buy a coffin and lie down. Nothing will develop. There's little energy and that's it. Just kidding. Of course it can. What else is there to do? Should you just die? It's just slower. There are different methods. If Saturn is strong, you can immediately sit in water and engage all 5 energy layers. Do static exercises for 5 layers. Walk almost up to 5 layers. But if Saturn is weak, start with 1 layer in water, static exercises for 1 layer, dynamic exercises, fasting for 1 layer. Then after a couple of months, move to 2 layers, then 3 layers. Over a year or a year and a half, you reach 5 layers, and that's it. What difference does it make whether your Saturn is strong or weak? If it's weak, you just have to enter ascetic practices more slowly. It will just be harder. Everything will activate more slowly. There will be more illnesses, less strength. That's a weak Saturn, but everything can be restored over time. You still need to reach all 5 layers and train. Through training, everything can be restored, even at an older age or with a weak Saturn. A person gradually recovers. We've now developed a program. It's already on the Apple Store, and soon we'll release it on Google Play for Android. This program shows how cleansing progress is going. It will include various programs for cleansing the body, depending on a person's strength, health, and age. We've already developed everything. There are 5 general cleansing schemes that don't require a specialist, and 1 scheme that requires working with a specialist. The final 5th scheme is very gradual. It takes several years to reach the 5th energy layer. But in general, you can go slowly at your own pace. The main thing is to do everything regularly, following a schedule. If you stick to the schedule, everything will restore itself. Next question.
Why isn't asceticism practice helping? It used to give me energy, but now it barely does.
It depends on the period in your life, and it can also depend on stress. For example, in Ukraine, many people are under stress right now, and they don't realize that stress significantly drains a person. For instance, the energy of despair, feelings of injustice, resentment, anger, it's all the same, just perceived differently. Overall, it's called despair. Despair means a strong sense of injustice. During this time, water energy is severely depleted. If a person lives in despair, they need to spend a long time in water to restore their energy. When I was in despair 3 years ago due to life situations, I stood in the sea daily, reaching all 5 energy layers and practiced static exercises every day. I was in Israel at that time. I felt like the water energy in my subtle energy body was simply evaporating. Water therapy helped me recover, and I didn't fall into stress. Stress happens when the subtle energy body breaks down, creating significant energetic blockages, especially on the 5th energy layer, deep within the energy field. I didn't let myself reach that point. I just felt drained, so I went into the water and practiced static exercises. When there's exhaustion, water is essential. I didn't even give my energy body the chance to form blockages. During times of stress, such as war, you need to perform more asceticism practice. Stress itself depletes energy. If you experience severe fear, like when rockets are flying, or feelings of hopelessness, air energy gets destroyed. You might not be able to walk for 4 hours daily or cover 21 kilometers, but you can still walk for an hour or an hour and a half daily, and maybe once a week take a longer walk. When someone feels fear or hopelessness, it becomes harder to move. When a specific energy is depleted, it becomes harder to restore. If there's disappointment in life, people, or the country, solar energy is severely depleted. In this case, fasting on greens or water fasting, visiting a sauna, and other solar energy restoration practices are necessary. So during stressful times like a national crisis, you need to dedicate more time and effort to ascetic practices. Often people say, "I'm not stressed, I ignore the war," but they may still experience a bad period. You live, and then suddenly it becomes harder to do things. This is a tough period. To determine why this bad period is happening, you can look at what kind of energy is affected. If it's harder to stay in water, then it's a bad period for water energy. If static exercises become harder, it's also related to water energy. If prolonged continuous movement becomes harder, it's a bad period for air energy. If fasting or staying in a sauna becomes harder, it's a bad period for the energy of the sun. If staying in the sun feels harder, it's also a bad period for the energy of the sun. If you feel cold in the wind, it's a bad period for air energy. If you can't stay in cold water, it's a bad period for water energy. Wherever there is a bad period, that's where you need to put your efforts. Fate tells you not to get into the water, but you go in anyway persistently. Fate says, "Don't walk, I'll make it tough for you," but you walk anyway. You just need to do everything more carefully during tough periods so you don't overexert yourself, because at that moment you're fighting against your fate. I've had situations when there was a bad period related to air energy, and I couldn't complete my usual 17-kilometer run a few times in my life. I'd start running and feel like I couldn't continue. It was too hard, especially in the heat. When I travel to a different climate, it can be very hot, and my body hasn't adapted yet. I can't run. I feel like I'm overheating, so I stop my run. This has happened 4 or 5 times in my life, mostly due to overheating. One time I felt a bad period. It was just really hard to move, but then, as my body adapted, or as that peak phase passed, I was able to run again. This is important to understand. When you're in a bad period, you need to take care of yourself and approach things carefully. But if you've reached your cruising speed, where you're cleansing all 5 energy layers through water, air, and sunlight, then a bad period might slow you down, but not enough to stop your ascetic practices. That's why you need to get accustomed to ascetic practices before a bad period starts. Otherwise, what will you do? Without ascetic practices, you can't overcome a bad period. You'll end up developing energetic blockages, and then chronic diseases will follow. But if you practice asceticism, no blockages will form. Even during a bad period or stress, you won't develop diseases or blockages, and when the bad period ends, you'll feel good again. You won't have experienced any stress or exhaustion. You'll simply have endured that time, and that's it. Isn't that a great way to live? During a bad period, you take it easy. Do your ascetic practices with less intensity. Then, when a good period comes, you go all out again. For example, I'm living through a bad period right now, but I'm still pushing myself to the limit with travels and everything else. Why? Because I've built a strong energy system. Even though I'm facing psychological stress, which has lessened now, it seems to come in waves. I feel fine overall. Everything's good. So, if a person is well trained, they might not even notice the bad period even as they age.
Can there be several blockages related to water, several to air, and to the sun?
As I said, a person has 4 blockages related to water. They can be of different intensity. Most often people have 1 to 2 very strong water-related blockages. The rest are weaker. Every person has 4 water-related blockages, 4 air-related, and 4 sun-related blockages. It's just that some are naturally strong and some are weak. There are people who neglect their health so much that all 4 of their blockages become strong. Regarding water, there are strong blockages and weak ones. Strong blockages cause chronic diseases, especially if 2 strong blockages stand together, that results in a chronic disease. And there are weak ones. That means the predisposition to blockages, as it was 4 cells, remained for life the same. For example, a blockage connected with the subtle energy body is 1.5 cells, and a blockage connected with the physical body is 1/2 a cell, so it's a very strong blockage, and it will naturally cause diseases. And if it's connected with another blockage, then these are chronic diseases. If there's just 1 heavy, strong blockage, then it's just an illness that comes and goes. But if 2 blockages are connected, or almost connected, then these are chronic diseases that are very difficult to treat, because you have to cleanse both of these blockages first, and only then the body starts to recover. And even then it will be harder to recover, Because you won't cleanse completely, you only cleanse blockages connected with the physical body in a year. And to completely cleanse the subtle energy body, you need to perform asceticism practice regularly for 3 years. Then the blockages in your subtle energy body will become very weak, and the predisposition to illness becomes practically zero. This means you can perform asceticism practice in such a way that even if you stop doing it, a year will pass and you won't develop diseases because you've already worked through the energetic blockages significantly. But this doesn't mean you should give up everything and do nothing. It's better to do everything throughout life. What is the point of risking your health? Bad periods haven't been cancelled. They can arise and your blockages will develop quickly, and then diseases will start to progress.
Are these energy layers subtle bodies like ethereal, astral, or not?
You have confusion in your head. Let's remove ethereal and astral. This is not Vedic classification. A person has a subtle energy body that has energy channels, chakras. Don't talk about ethereal bodies or astral bodies. It's not described like that in the Vedas. Someone made that up. It doesn't exist. There are 3 bodies, a physical body, a subtle energy body, and a spiritual body. The subtle energy body itself also has subdivisions. There is a subdivision of intelligence, a subdivision of mind, and a subdivision of human ego. These are 3 structures of the subtle energy body. But diseases, life, fate, all reside in the subtle energy body of mind. It's called the subtle energy body of mind, or simply the subtle energy body. Call it whatever you want, it all refers to the subtle energy body of mind, because the subtle energy body of intelligence and human ego are like settings on the subtle energy body on the main one. It's not the main body, but something auxiliary. For example, there's a computer and there's a computer case, something auxiliary, that is not the computer itself. But it's not like you can replace the case, you can't replace intelligence, and you can't replace ego either. But they have auxiliary functions in terms of the workings of the subtle energy body. So there is only the subtle energy body. It has 2 types of channels, nadis and shrotas. There is a sphere in the center that is responsible for fate. In the subtle energy body, there are senses. There is the sense of sight, and there are eyes that are connected with the physical body. But the sense of sight is a subtle sense. When a person dies, the physical body no longer works. The physical eyes don't see. But a person still sees through the subtle energy body. And vision through the subtle energy body, when it activates after death, that is for sure, sees differently than eyes do. It can see people's thoughts. If a person is developed and their subtle vision works well, they can see people's fate, people's thoughts. They can even see fate to some degree in the future and in the past. Past lives can be seen if you are oriented in the subtle energy body. Your subtle vision works, the invisible one. I study the subtle energy body using subtle, invisible vision. When I run, I see how cleansing happens in all 35 subdivisions. When I sit in water, I see how cleansing happens in all 35 subdivisions. The same when I fast and when I'm in the sun. In any country, I don't need any calculations. I can directly see how the sun cleanses me. On which layer, which dhatu. A layer subdivision is called dhatu. So, I see all of this and describe it and then create all these systems of healing and cleansing. Now, for example, we're developing a watch that will work without my presence. Because there is a pattern. At a certain speed, at a certain distance, the cleansing goes in a certain way. At a certain light intensity, at a certain temperature and humidity in the steam room, the cleansing goes in a certain way. In a certain body position, the cleansing goes in a certain way. We identified the patterns, entered all data into the program, and now everyone can use it. Soon you'll be able to order a program for your watch and use it. You run, and it shows you how many energy layers you've cleansed. You don't need to monitor speed or distance. You just run, and it shows you everything. It's very convenient. But to start doing this, you need to see it all. I created this system through vision. It just existed in nature, I discovered it, and now we use it. Next question.
How is the lack of energy in the subtle energy body and physical body diagnosed? On my own or with the help of a specialist?
But if you come to Dr. Torsunov, he says you have a lack of water energy. Compatibility has nothing to do with it. If you get charged with water energy, you'll be happy and calm with your husband. There will be complete compatibility. Because you have enough water energy. My wife sat in water today, went to a hammam, sat in water again, and now she's as calm as can be. She has enough water energy, husband is happy, and we can live long. Because nothing torments or irritates the wife. And it's impossible to live when every step sideways leads to immediate execution. If you do something wrong, immediate execution. When she's dissatisfied with everything, doesn't like this and doesn't like that, that means she lacks water energy. And when there's enough water energy, it's fine to live with your wife. She's calm and walks around happy. She brings happiness and is very joyful. Everything is good with her. These are all energetic things. You can diagnose yourself easily. When a wife diagnoses herself, of course, she'll think that I'm bad and everything's bad because of me. But for some reason, she feels fine after water. No problems. So we do have problems inside after all. When we lack water energy, we get irritated. Men also get angry, shout, and are constantly dissatisfied with something. For example, the wife shows a bit of emotion, and he immediately becomes dissatisfied. That means he also lacks water energy. When a person lacks air energy, their willpower functions suffer. It's hard for them to work, concentrate, force themselves to get out of bed. It's difficult to do anything. They just sit there wasting time or start to fuss around, because it's very difficult to break through this lack of air energy. When a person tries to break through it, they start moving faster and faster. This fussiness also indicates a lack of air energy. Either they're constantly sluggish or they're fussing around. When there is no ability to think or concentrate, that means lack of air energy. When elderly people have Alzheimer's, their thoughts stop. Can you imagine the thoughts stopping? A person decides to say hello, but there's no one there. So they're saying hello to empty space because their thoughts have stopped. Someone just passed by a minute ago and they thought they should say hello, but this thought only reached them a minute later. They turn around, but there's no one there anymore. That person has already left. This means lack of air energy. All their processes slow down. It takes them forever to understand things. They can't do things on time. This is Alzheimer's. The reason is lack of air energy. They should practice prolonged continuous movement. When a person does prolonged continuous movement, everything is fine. They greet everyone on time, think on time. Their thoughts don't stop, words don't get stuck. How to determine if there's a lack of air energy? Well, take a look at yourself. If you're lazy all the time, you lack focus, can't work, or get tired quickly from work, walk around sluggish, have no energy, feel constant weakness, have no strength, have spasms throughout the body, and there's always some pain. This means lack of air energy. When a person lacks energy of the sun, they have excess weight and constantly overeat in the evenings. The energy of the sun is the energy of happiness. When a person lacks happiness, they need to eat. Because in the physical body there are also three energies. Water energy in the physical body is just water that you drink. Air energy is the air you breathe, and sun energy is food. Lack of energy of happiness in the subtle energy body is a sign of lack of sun energy, and on the physical level a person starts to feel and think they lack food because their thinking becomes distorted. Their mood is bad because partial energy of the sun is restored through food. Let's say you overeat and your sun energy increases by about 15%. That's enough to live. Well, great, I'm fine. Mood is improved right after a meal. Everything's good, they're so happy. But this is temporary. You ate, but then the energy of the sun decreased, and after an hour you want to eat again. You think you have to replenish sun energy only through food, but it is replenished through the sun. To activate the sun in the body, on the contrary, you should stop eating. Because when a person eats, all their sun energy goes to digesting food. When a person doesn't eat, then the energy of the sun begins to fill the body with sun energy. Mood improves when a person has learned not to eat. They have passed the test, learned not to eat. Their body has set itself up for solar nourishment. It begins to be nourished by the sun. Well, not just by the sun, but by the sun plus unnecessary substances. That means the energy of the sun starts digesting all toxins and tumors in the body. This is called solar nourishment. That means chemical substances come from internal nourishment and not from the environment. For example, when a person doesn't eat, the body starts to digest fat, removing excess weight. It removes benign and malignant tumors. This all happens through fasting or solar nourishment. But when a person isn't used to this solar nourishment, it's not activated in the body. In fact, this filling of energy has to be activated in the body. The ability to be filled fades in a person gradually. Small children have it mostly, except for those who have cerebral palsy, autism, and chronic diseases. Such children don't have the ability to fill themselves. It's not activated. It should be activated through asceticism practice even in a child. But in an adult, it gradually turns off. People live their lives thinking they're doing fine, their lives are fine. But everything is not fine. You're aging and your ability to be filled with subtle energy is decreasing. You need to start practicing asceticism, stay in water, do static and dynamic exercises, perform prolonged continuous movement, fast, go to the sauna. You have to do all of these in order to be filled with energy, my dear friend. Otherwise, your body gradually weakens, loses strength, and chronic diseases develop. This all happens slowly. You won't even notice. You think, I'm doing fine. No, nothing is fine. You started overeating at night, which means you lack sun energy completely. A person must be in a good mood, because in a bad mood they can't fall asleep. Without the energy of the sun, you won't fall asleep. The body is overexcited. It needs the energy of the sun to relax. But if you overeat, it all goes into excess weight and toxins. The energy of the sun digests food, but there's no sun at night, so nothing gets digested. Everything you have eaten at night, in the evening, before bed, all turns into toxins. The only exceptions are fruits, dried fruits, and light food. You can eat light food. It gets digested without the sun. But heavy food, grains, legumes, dairy, meat, fish, heavy sweets, all kinds of cakes, all of this is digested with the help of the sun. People shouldn't eat this in the evening, but they do. Why? Because they can't not eat. They need the energy of the sun. They can't get it from asceticism practice. Their mechanism of asceticism is not activated. For example, I have toxins. I automatically don't want to eat. I lose my appetite. I simply don't eat, and everything recovers immediately. This is called an activated mechanism. Or when a person feels they have no strength, they immediately want to get fresh air, take a walk, go for a run. That means the mechanism is activated. Or when you feel irritability rising, you should immediately get into the water. You stay in water. Your mechanism is activated. Your body knows where to go to restore energy. But most people don't have this mechanism activated. When they feel bad, they go to the computer and sit there watching all kinds of nonsense. Why? Because they start moving their eyes, watching various war games and other things. This creates an imitation of movement for them, as if there's some action happening. But in reality, there's no real action. It's self-deception. The energy of air doesn't enter the body through the computer. Watching an action movie doesn't increase the energy of air in your body. The energy of love doesn't increase while you're watching a romance film on TV. The energy of love increases when you go out in the sun. But people don't want to perform asceticism practices. They are maladapted. They live incorrectly. Their energy keeps diminishing. Therefore, their health deteriorates. Family life deteriorates. Work deteriorates. An unhappy life develops, and chronic diseases come along with it. This is the result of an incorrect lifestyle. Next question.
I have a question. Can a chronic disease be congenital, or are chronic diseases only acquired over the years of our life?
Look, you were born. Conception occurred. Your mother has some energetic blockage. There's no energy there. As you receive energy through your mother into your body, you also lack energy in this zone. And from birth, even before you're born, you already have energy deficiency, and the organ suffers. You're born with energy deficiency in the stomach. As a result, nothing digests properly. Why? Because your mother had energetic blockages in the second energy layer, and now you have blockages too. Let's say you also have a predisposition to have an energetic blockage in the second layer, like your parents, and your mother doesn't lead a healthy lifestyle. As a result, the child also lacks energy, and they have a chronic disease from birth. This is how fate works. But if the mother does everything correctly, the child won't have a chronic disease. Of course, sometimes a bad period can be so strong that even when the mother does everything correctly, the child is still born with a chronic disease. But if the mother does everything correctly, the child at least has an activated mechanism for receiving energy. The child is drawn to water because the mother accustomed them to staying in water during pregnancy. The child is drawn to fresh air because the mother accustomed them during pregnancy to the need for fresh air. The mother taught that one needs to be in the sun, and the child reaches for it, wants to be in water, in the sun where there is fresh air. They fill up with energy and overcome the illness because children's subtle energy body fills up much more actively. It's enough for them to start doing just a little asceticism practice to get them slightly involved in these practices, and everything starts functioning, everything begins to recover. Because the subtle energy body doesn't produce too much negative energy in childhood, bad fate can simply manifest and create illness, but it's easier to heal if everything is done correctly compared to old age. In old age, fate weighs you down. There are many accumulated energetic blockages, lots of negative energies, and the body is already old, so it becomes very difficult to do everything. But if a person is well trained, they still somehow manage and live. Even in old age, it's possible to maintain all energies and restore the body. But everything is weaker and slower than in childhood. But in childhood, if energies are properly activated. But you should understand, if a child is weakened and you put them into freezing water, there will be hypothermia, of course. There's a whole science to how to do this correctly. But on the other hand, you shouldn't be too afraid. Doctors say just don't put them in water. But how will they receive water energy? On the contrary, they need water. It's a paradox. When a person has an inflammatory process, doctors say, you can't contact water, you can't. Everything will get worse. Nothing will get worse. If the water temperature is 28 degrees, then the person is not cold. Stay in water to cleanse 5 energy layers. Do static exercises. Inflammation will decrease. This is a fact, and it works. Doctors don't know. They're afraid. They say, you can't stay in water, can't breathe fresh air, can't go in the sun. You have inflammation. This is complete nonsense. How can you heal this inflammation then?
Is it possible to cure a disease completely so that it doesn't become chronic?
Of course it's possible. As soon as you get sick, start doing everything. When the subtle energy body recovers, you're healed, and it doesn't become chronic. But doctors say, if you got an acute illness, now wait for it to become chronic. If a person has blocked energy layers, of course, an acute illness then becomes chronic. But this is the thinking of people who don't know what to do about it. Let's say if someone rides a bicycle, and they don't know how to repair it. A tire started to deflate, and they went to a specialist. The specialist says, now wait for your tire to completely deflate, and you'll be riding on the rims, then it will break, and you'll have to replace either the wheel or the tire. What kind of specialist is that? This is a person who doesn't know. But if a person knows, they say, don't worry, now we'll patch the hole, pump it up with air, and you'll ride on this tire again. You don't need to replace it. Or they say, my wheel is bent. One says, don't worry, we'll straighten it now, and puts it on a special turner, pumps it up properly, and that's it. They straighten the wheel. That's all. There is treatment, correct treatment. Doctors don't know how to treat chronic diseases. They don't deal with the subtle energy body. That's why they tell you, if you've developed gastritis, expect a stomach ulcer. If you don't treat the subtle energy body, that's how it will be. They're right about that. They just don't know how to treat the subtle energy body and instill in you this thinking that if you have gastritis, it's for a lifetime already. That's it. If there's a slight aggravation, then expect a chronic disease soon. This is foolish thinking. Everything in the body recovers if you give it energy. The body has a divine nature. God created it. Everything recovers. Some doctors say, you have a genetic failure. There is no genetic failure. Even these genetic diseases ultimately stem from chronic energy deficiencies. When energies are restored, genes also recover. There are now dissertations explaining that genes also recover. The body has a gene repair mechanism. Everything gets repaired. Everything gets recreated. Everything recovers normally. Energy is needed. And energy means you need to get off your backside and go to the pool. Start doing static exercises. Do prolonged continuous movement. Start fasting, at least gradually, on greens. Everything starts gradually. You should lie in the bath a little at a time. First in 28 degrees water for 14 minutes. One energy layer will be cleansed. For a week you should stay in water for 14 minutes, twice a week. Then increase to 28 minutes. In the beginning, do 13 minutes of static exercise for one energy layer, 48 minutes of walking for one layer, and 12-hour intermittent fasting. For example, no dinner, only drinking water in the evening. This is intermittent eating. Start doing it to cleanse one energy layer. After doing so for 2-3 months, start cleansing 2 layers. We're not rushing anywhere. Do for 2-3 months for 2 layers and move to 3 layers. Again, we're not rushing anywhere. And so after a year, you'll be already engaged in doing it for 5 layers. Even if you're already quite old, if you do everything correctly in a year, you'll be cleansing all 5 energy layers and everything will start recovering for you. The activation process itself requires time, but we have no patience. We want everything faster and immediately. But that's not how life works. Next question.
How to explain when a vegetarian develops new growths, polyps, cysts, tumors? What kind of toxins are accumulating?
My dears, do you think vegetarians won't get tumors? If you eat grains in the evening, if you eat bread in the evening, you stuff yourself, right? You stuff yourself with bread in the evening, dairy products, cakes, you'll definitely get a tumor. Because this food creates a deficiency of the energy of the sun. And lack of the energy of the sun leads to tumors. There are 3 stages. The first stage is excess weight. Do you think vegetarians don't get overweight? Look how many overweight vegetarians there are around, because they overeat in the evening. The second stage is a benign tumor, and the third stage is a malignant tumor. These stages depend on the energy of the sun. If there's a 10% lack of the energy of the sun, then there will be excess weight. If there's a 15% lack of the energy of the sun, a benign tumor will appear. A 20% lack of the energy of the sun, a malignant tumor will develop. Whether you're a vegetarian or not, there's no difference, because you shouldn't eat late in the evening. After 6 in the evening, the lack of the energy of the sun accumulates. Because once the sun sets, that's it. Nothing will be digested. And you're stuffing yourself with food at this time. This way you're basically killing your body. Therefore, grains are only digested under the sun's influence. Legumes too. You shouldn't eat soy, bread, or rice in the evening. There are non-grain cereals that are not connected with the sun. These are buckwheat, quinoa, millet, amaranth, sago. These can be eaten in the evening without problems. Everything will be digested. Vegetables are allowed, for example, zucchini. You can stew them and eat. Even if you eat a ton of zucchini, at worst you'll get diarrhea. If the body doesn't absorb them, it will simply expel them and that's it. But wheat is an easily digestible food. You eat bread, and it immediately gets absorbed. But it can't be absorbed completely, because the digestion cycle is incomplete. There's not enough energy of the sun to complete the digestion cycle, and therefore everything turns into fat. Zucchini is hard to digest. It's fiber. The body absorbs what it can digest, and everything else is expelled. That's it. Nothing accumulates in this case. Zucchini doesn't accumulate, but sweet food does accumulate. It's undercooked. There are also fruit sweets. Fruit itself is an amazing product. It provides energy for its own digestion. Plum provides plum fructose. This is energy for digestion. Cherry provides cherry fructose for digestion. Raw beetroot provides beet sugar, but it also contains suppressing sugar. Raw beetroot lowers blood sugar. Raw beetroot by itself lowers blood sugar, especially if it's not sweet. And if it's very sweet, it slightly raises sugar. But mostly it still lowers sugar. And if you separate sugar from beetroot, then it can't lower sugar. These are called free sugars. Precisely these free sugars create problems with excess weight, and then benign and malignant tumors appear, because these are different stages of deficiency of the energy of the sun. If there's not enough the energy of the sun, toxins aren't removed from the body, then tumors develop. So, being a vegetarian doesn't mean you won't have tumors. Vegetarians can have anemia, tumors, and anything else. It depends on lifestyle. If you don't do prolonged, continuous movement, you lack deep cellular digestion, you'll have anemia. And it's not just vegetarians who get anemia. It can happen to meat eaters too. There's no cellular nutrition, nothing is absorbed. That's it. For example, you go to a store. The store is closed. You ask, why is the store closed? Is there no food? They tell you, the food is there. It's on the shelves. Why is the store closed? The seller is sick. No one to work. That's it. The store is closed. If you have no energy, you don't provide energy. The products are there inside, but there's no energy. No seller. It means nothing will work. Everything will be closed. Whether it's a vegetarian or non-vegetarian store or whatever, there's no seller. You can't sell anything. Let's continue. You see how the sun is shining on me? You see what I'm like? Sunny? I'm healing with sunlight meanwhile. My office was made so that I always have sunlight. It was specially made this way to have constant sunlight. Like in a song, I'm sitting in the sunshine. Next questions.
A bit more about vegetarian diet. Medical professionals claim that many diseases develop due to protein deficiency. How important is it to eat enough protein on a vegetarian diet, or is it enough to just follow healthy lifestyle rules?
This is again about doctors. The word doctor comes from the word to deceive. I'm convinced of this. Some doctors constantly lie. What does protein have to do with it? Don't you understand that dairy protein is also animal protein? It's absorbed 10 times better than meat protein. Meat protein is very heavy. It's very poorly absorbed. Take a hypertonic solution, which is a hydrochloric acid solution like in our stomach, put a piece of cheese in it, and set the temperature to 40 degrees at which food is digested. This piece of cheese will dissolve there in 2-3 hours in this water, and put a piece of meat. It will take 8 hours to dissolve it. Meat is very heavy food. It's difficult to digest. It's heavy and fibrous. But cheese, sour cream, cottage cheese, all of these are digested instantly. And this is also protein, animal protein. Just eat dairy products and that's it. If your body struggles to digest some dairy product, find another one. If someone can't digest kefir, they might digest fermented baked milk. If you can't digest cottage cheese, then you'll be able to digest cheese. If you can't digest white cheese, then you'll be able to digest yellow cheese. Find your dairy products. If you can't digest cow's milk products, eat goat's milk products. Those are dairy products too. There are lots of dairy products. Now there's a huge selection. What's stopping you? No, you say, I don't have enough protein. Eat protein properly so that you have enough of it. You also need to consume food that contains oil. This is also funny. People think vegetarian food means lean food. Like there's Orthodox fasting, which excludes food containing oil. They eat grass in the meadow like a little goat. This is also good sometimes. If you've eaten too much meat, it's good to eat lean food. 40% of meat is fat. If you take meat and put it under a press, oil or fat will pour out, making up 40% of the piece of meat. There's a lot of fat in meat. But plants don't have that much fat. If you press flax seeds, Oil will also come out, but not to the same degree as from meat. Therefore, vegetarian food needs to be well oiled. Don't be afraid of it. They say, don't eat butter or oil at all. Don't add it to food. It's harmful. This is all for meat eaters. If a person is vegetarian, then they need to, on the contrary, add plenty of butter or oil to everything they eat. Add butter or oil everywhere, because food that contains oil is well absorbed. For any substance to be absorbed into the blood, it must be surrounded by oil. Without oil, nothing gets absorbed. Everything just passes through. That's why you need food that contains oil. Make sure to add plenty of oil to everything so that all food floats in it. Then your protein will be absorbed, and you won't have anemia, and won't have protein deficiency. You need to practice prolonged movement in addition to this. Because there are two types of digestion. Some food is digested with the help of the sun. This means you need to have lunch at 12 o'clock. At 12, at 1 p.m., at 2 p.m. the sun is still active. Everything will be digested. At 3 p.m. it's already worse. At 4, even worse. At 6, it's completely terrible. At 11 a.m. the sun has just risen. Active digestion is just beginning. Therefore, lunch should be the most active meal. You should eat the largest meal at lunch. I don't eat at all in the morning. I drink water. All toxins are removed from my body. I practice intermittent eating. I eat only fruits in the evening. Only fruits. I don't eat anything else in the evening. Just fruits, and that's all. You can eat vegetables. I just get overheated and fruits cool me down. That's why I only eat fruits in the evening. If you get cold, you can eat vegetables. Lunch should be complete, and then everything will be absorbed better. You should have light breakfast and light dinner. Then the sun will digest the food you eat. Besides the sun, movement also helps digestion. If you do prolonged continuous movement, your deep digestion turns on. For deep digestion to turn on, you need to walk continuously for more than 2.5 hours. If you walk for just an hour, your anemia won't be cured, because you're only cleansing the first energy layer. But deep absorption happens at the 3rd, 4th, and 5th energy layer. Hemoglobin is formed in the 4th energy layer. If you don't walk for 3 hours once a week, your anemia won't be cured. You need to walk for 3 hours, otherwise nothing will be cured. This knowledge is essential. You say, I walk for an hour every day. Why isn't my anemia cured? Because you don't reach the 4th energy layer. And absorption in the 4th energy layer also doesn't activate, because movement itself also stimulates digestion. This also needs to be known. The main meal should be at lunch. You shouldn't eat heavy food in the evening. If you eat heavy food in the evening, all the energy of the sun is gone. Then everything turns into diarrhea and toxins. And the next day, there's no digestion at all, no appetite. So you need to add oil to your food. Eat enough animal protein. Some people are fine even without animal protein. They have no anemia. They simply have the correct lifestyle. I had an acquaintance in India. His food was very modest. He ate almost only coconuts, some fruits, and a few vegetables. He excluded everything. He excluded dairy products. Such a vegan who didn't even eat all vegan products. But he ate lots of coconuts, and they contain lots of coconut oil. He just ate lots of coconuts. And what? His body works great because he does prolonged, continuous movement, stays in water, does static exercises, does fasting. His body functions well. He eats on time, so he's fine even without animal protein. All his body indicators are normal. Because his life is well organized, but if yours isn't, then eat wholesome food. Get animal protein from dairy products. If you don't digest dairy food well, which contains cow's protein, then try goat's protein. There are different types of milk. There's buffalo milk, goat's milk, cow's milk, mare's milk, and you can make cottage cheese from it, and kummis, and ayran, and everything else. Everything is possible. They even make cheese from mare's milk. All of this is possible. You need to study it. Maybe these aren't common products, but if you arrange the supply, everything will be fine. Therefore, live on the bright side. But if they tell you meat, then with this food you immediately extinguish the energy of the sun within yourself. You eat meat, the energy of the sun is gone, digestion immediately decreases, excess weight accumulates. All scientists know that atherosclerosis comes from eating meat. Atherosclerosis is also precancer. Just as fat accumulates under the skin, fat accumulates in blood vessels. This is practically precancer already or pre-stroke. The cause is meat. The main cause is meat food, animal fat, which causes atherosclerosis. Why don't doctors talk about this then? So many dissertations have been written. No, they keep insisting meat, meat. They eat meat themselves, so they make everyone else do it. This is such a herd instinct. It's not that they have developed a process of cognition. It's not that they have deep knowledge about how all this works. No, this is herd instinct. They think it's impossible to live without meat. This is just their way of thinking. As I remember, I was on television in Kiev once. There was no war yet. I came to Kiev probably around 2007. There was a children's program about vegetarianism, and one child asked me, "Well, it's impossible to live without meat. How long haven't you eaten meat?" I say, 20 years. He says, "It's impossible to live without meat." I say, "For the first time on Kiev television, a dead doctor is speaking. After all, it's impossible to live. I'm already dead, but I'm here on the program." The child was sitting there, looking, thinking how it was possible. I haven't eaten meat for 20 years, and yet I'm alive. They've simply brainwashed him, you understand? I haven't eaten meat since I was 23. I'm almost 60 now, just a few months short. Calculate how long I haven't eaten meat. It turns out 37 years without meat. They think it's impossible to live without meat, but I don't secretly eat bacon under my pillow at night when no one sees. I don't eat meat at all. I eat dairy products, but not all of them. For example, I don't drink kefir, but I eat sour cream, cheese, ice cream. I love ice cream. This is my dessert, sweet food. Sour cream, ice cream, cheese, butter, almost no other dairy products. I don't drink kefir and milk, practically. I don't digest milk well. And I feel fine, absolutely excellent. Therefore, learn to eat correctly and everything will be fine. You'll feel good.
How should we do asceticism practice during a cold? Skip cold water sessions until symptoms of the cold pass? Will this significantly slow down healing from chronic illness?
Well, when a cold starts, you have a fever, you can't do running anymore. Maybe you can still do static exercises. You should stay in water, which is not cold but warm. You need to wait until the cold is cured. During this time, you need to take care of yourself. Eat turmeric and spray your nose and mouth with our antiviral spray. It's a really great thing. I use it. And I have no cold at all. I've forgotten what a cold is. Wherever I go, I spray my mouth, nose with it. It's a mixture of 8 types of antiviral oils. And that's it. I don't catch a cold. I have good immunity due to the correct lifestyle, and I use this spray. When a virus penetrates, it dies under the influence of the oil. If it gets inside, it's already weakened, then immunity develops. It's a really great thing. If you do get sick, you should apply this oil on your chest and forehead. Turmeric is a natural antiviral remedy. You should constantly drink turmeric. It helps a lot too. Cloves, chewing cloves in your mouth immediately kills all viruses in the mouth. Ginger defeats certain types of viruses. Turmeric also defeats Staphylococcus and Streptococcus viruses. Yellow mustard, Staphylococcus streptococcus dies from it. If there's pneumonia, they apply mustard plasters. It helps a lot too. Often pneumonia occurs from Staphylococcus, Streptococcus. Calendula, chamomile destroys Staphylococcus, Streptococcus. Pine needles, often pine cone jam, is also great to eat during a cold. It kills viruses. Fir oil. Fir also kills viral infection. Many different spices, all these that I listed, oils defeat viruses. False flax oil has a broad spectrum of antiviral action. False flax oil helps a lot. Apply it all over your body during a cold. Drink turmeric tea. If the infection is very severe, you can mix 5 parts of false flax oil with 1 part turmeric. Mix it, apply it over your body. You'll be yellow. You'll look like a cartoon character, but you'll heal very quickly. Neem oil treats viral infection. In India, for example, there's neem oil. It's black in color. If you mix it with turmeric oil, it helps incredibly well too. But we use 8 types of oils in the right proportion. So order the spray from our center, Amrita. It even reaches Europe, but you need to order in bulk somehow through clubs. We can organize that too. We'll deliver. Do you have our oil, or do they produce it themselves there in Europe?
Dr. Torsunov, we go to Georgia to get oil from you.
Oh, really? Well, then he'll bring it.
Yes.
We have production set up in Europe too. You can get it there. They make oil in Poland, for example. In Germany they make it. You can order from them too. You can get it in Georgia. Yes, take it with you while you're there.
We've already promised to bring it from Georgia to everyone in Riga. They're all waiting.
Yes, that's fine. Good, you can do it that way. Let's continue with questions.
Yes. About the oil, for those who don't know, you can write directly in the chat where you usually write. To order, I'll send you the link where to order. Next question.
Helene, you use the oil yourself. You spray it, right?
Yes.
Is it working well? Do you get viral infections?
It's fine. Well, I caught something now.
That means you didn't spray it.
Sometimes it happens, yes.
Well, you need to always spray it on time. Don't forget.
Yes, it needs to be done on time.
Next questions.
Yes, in general, if you need oils, you can order through your organizers or write to the website. We'll order everything. You say that asceticism practice should be done in a good mood. What should one do if they're in a bad mood?
Then don't do asceticism practice. Lie down and die. I'm in a bad mood, Dr. Torsunov. That's it. I won't run, won't stay in water, won't do static or dynamic exercises, won't do anything. That's it. I'm in a bad mood. Well, it will improve as you move. Often people come to our running sessions in a bad mood. By the end of the run, everyone's laughing. Or they enter the water in a bad mood. After the water session, everyone's laughing. Everything is fine. Start fasting in a bad mood. Finish fasting, feeling cheerful. After eating naturally. So you need to start asceticism practice in any mood. Let me play a song about this topic to lighten up the atmosphere a bit, about mood and asceticism practice. As the song says, dress yourself in happiness in any weather, do asceticism practice, and everything will work out, life will get better. Dressing in happiness means doing asceticism practice. That's it. This is the recipe for all people on earth. Next question.
Hello.
Hello?
Dr. Torsunov, I wanted to ask. I've been frequently ill since childhood. I always get respiratory infections. But I was active and did physical exercises, fortified my body, and I still never got rid of these respiratory infections. And now I also get respiratory infections every month.
In your second energy layer, you have a blockage of static tension related to water energy and dynamic tension related to sun's energy. Toxins accumulate strongly in the second layer. You need to stay in water to cleanse at least 2 layers. Do static exercises, do prolonged continuous movement, and do 24-hour fasting, and all this needs to be done throughout the year. After a year, the blockages will be cleansed, and then the mucous membrane will begin to recover. Since you didn't do all this in childhood, that's why you had colds. You always loved to eat, in childhood too. You accumulated blockages of the sun's energy, and you constantly have toxins in the body. You were constantly overeating.
I'm saying I still can't do fasting. Sometimes I'll do it once, but then I can't do it for a long time.
The more toxins, the harder it is to do fasting. It's a vicious circle.
But how do I start this fasting? I just can't manage to.
I'll explain. First stay in water, then do static exercises, then dynamic exercises. Once you've activated these energies, it becomes easier to fast. Do everything according to the guide. You haven't read anything, haven't studied, and think that you're sick because it's your fate. You just need to study everything and do everything correctly. Then you won't be sick. Last question.
What if it seems that I have all the blockages you listed? How to live after this, and what does it mean?
This is called anxiety. If a person is anxious, they think they have everything, all diseases. That's the end, they're already dying. Everything is bad for them. This is called anxiety. This is a lack of the energy of the sun. The person has a negative attitude towards the world. You just need to fast and do all asceticism practices in general. Practice fasting, stay in the sun, stay in sauna, and then everything will be fine. Positive energy will flow.